Hi guys, so the 9070 and the 9070 XT reviews are out, and I spent most of yesterday as well as today watching a ton of YouTube videos and reviews on the 9070 and 90 XT. Also, I spent most of today looking at the prices of what they are listed at, whether they are available in stock, and we'll go through all of them today. Okay, so first and foremost is as I went through, basically I'm doing my research on whether the 9070s, whether they are no good buy. My conclusion is that they are pretty good buy just based on their price. So this is let's talk about the price first. This is the MSRP of these various GPUs that's listed here on my spreadsheet. The 4070 Super was listed at a 599 or just 600 USD MSRP, which I convert to to the exchange rate based on today from Google. It's about 800 SGD, but yeah, it's actually selling around that price sometimes, or 900 something SGD, but it's mostly out of stock. Like I can see one that's been listed in, I think, Lazada for 968 Singapore dollars, but the rest of it is totally out of stock. I don't see any other listings. For the 9070 is listed at 550 USD, which converted to SGD is $730. But from most of the listings that I can find from TechYard or Carousel, Lazada doesn't have any of the listings yet. It is listed at anywhere from 899, which is 900 Sing dollars, to as much as 1,200 Sing dollars, which is grossly overpriced. For the 5070, is listed at 550 USD, which converts to about 730 SGD again. But I've looked anywhere, everywhere. It's not listed. It's not even sold in Singapore, so not available. Right? It's not even on Carousel, not even on the Tech Yard. I don't know whether they have a physical one in stores at Simlim. But for the Simlim price list, right, the reason I didn't refer to the Simlim price list is that they are not updated yet. So the last update is from 2nd of March. Even I went to Dynacore's website, they are only updated on 1st of March. So we have to wait for this weekend, I believe, to see an updated list. Moving on, 9070 XT, 600 USD, 700 is about 800 SGD based on conversion. But what they are selling for, the cheapest models I can find is 999, which is 1000 SGD, all the way to 1299 SGD. Kindly take note that from the pricing listed here, you do need to add about 9% in GST. So even if it's 800 SGD, if you add generally about 9 to 10% GST, it should be listed at around 880 SGD. But the cheapest price I can find is about 1000 SGD, so about $100+ upsell. Then for the 5070 Ti, they are available in Singapore. They are listed for MSRP of 750 USD, which is equivalent to about 1000 Sing dollars. But if you look at all the listings on TechYard, as well as from the other retailers, like on TechYard and so on, they are fairly expensive. Can I find a 5070 Ti here? Yeah, 1600. So from my research, they are listed from anywhere from 1479 SGD to all the way up to 1839 SGD, which is like a 40 to 80% increase in price from the MSRP. So the 5070 Ti is super duper overpriced. And in regards to stock, right, let's talk about the stock. 4070 Supers is, I think, out of stock, only one listing left. That might be sold out as well. We don't know whether the listing is updated. The rest, if we are talking about the 9070 and 9070 XTs, they are also all out of stock. So TechYard has most of them listed for pretty decent prices, but all of them are out of stock. So is all the 5080s, 5090s, and 5070 Ti's, right? They are all sold out, or they are on pre-order only. So basically, the listings here are a gauge of the price they would sell at if they are restocked, but right now they are all sold out. So unless you can actually do a pre-order. For example, let's say you're interested in do I have a 999 9070 XC here? Where is that? Yeah, so one here from Power Color. This MSR, yeah, so it's out of stock. So you might have to, they don't have anything for pre-order. There are some which are pre-orders, but you have to look through the website yourself. I do remember there are some which are pre-orders. I can't, might spend some time to look at it. For now, 9070 XT, this is a little bit pricier. Yeah, so it's sold out as well. Yeah, so all of it is sold out. Or you could try your luck on Carousel. So Carousel also has listings of 9070 and 9070 XT. Most of them are pretty overpriced. Like this 9070 is kind of bad value. It's like $900, where for $999 you could get a 9070 XT. So yeah, so there are some listings on Carousel, but some of them are pretty overpriced. I would say the best bet, right, is at physical stores. Like if you go down to Simlim, for Lazada, there's no listing at all. Like if you go down to Simlim, to the various stores, probably Dynacore, Fuwell, and what are the other stores here, like Tech Deals, Trade Pack, Bizgram, right? Then they might have some 9070s or 9070 XTs in stock. So the best bet is actually looking for it physically, because all the online retailers are sold out, and Carousel doesn't look like there's any good deals. It's pretty overpriced, so I wouldn't buy from Carousel. Okay, now let's go back to the review. So how do they perform in relative to each other, and even at the overpriced prices, is it worth a buy? I would say no. Definitely you try to buy at the lowest price that you can find the 9070 XT set. The 9070s, not really that much worth it, but if you're like it's $899 compared to $999, it's just $100 more. If you're waiting for stock anyway, the 9070s are also out of stock. You might as well just wait like maybe 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks longer, and wait for the 9070 XTs to come back in stock and try to grab them at 1000 SGD, rather than paying $100 less and getting a much more inferior product. So I've gone through all the videos, not say all the videos, there are many review videos online on YouTube. So I've gone through most of them. So all these videos that I've went through, their links for them will be listed here in the video description. So I already prepared it, so later I'll include this in the video, so you can follow the links there to watch the individual videos yourself when you have the time to, right? But it's a lot, so I'm going through them so that if you want to save time, you can see my summarized version here. So for Paul's Hardware, he actually did a very nice recap as well as his own review videos. So he had a meta recap, which is really concise, a 13-minute video where he recaps simply what I'm doing here. So I got my idea from watching his videos, which is to review and recap from the various channels. So it's a pretty good recap. You can catch that Paul's Hardware's recap video in my description below. And from his reviews, the 4070 Super, he used it as a comparison for against the 5070, 9070, and this should be the, I think this is wrong. This should be here. Yeah. So this is 9070 XT. And what he found was that with the 4070 as a baseline, the 9070 is about performing the same as well as the 5070, also performing the same as the 4070 Super. Which means the 9070 and 5070 are on parity, right? So they are about the same. So if you can find them at the same price, you can consider either one of them. The 9070 XT will be 14% faster than the 4070 Super at 1440p, whereby the 5070 Ti will be 26% faster than the 4070 Super. So comparing the 9070 XT to the 5070 Ti, the 5070 Ti is superior in all the videos that I've seen through. So no matter what, if you're going for the better GPU, the 5070 Ti is the better GPU, but at what cost though? Because if you look at the price in SGD, 5070 Ti, even the cheapest models, provided they are in stock, because I think almost all the 5070 Ti's are out of stock as well, provided they are in stock, you're paying about 50% more for the 5070 Ti as compared to the 9070 XT. So it's like you can pay as much as $1,800 compared to like maybe $1,300 for the 9070 XT, and that is a $500 difference. Basically, it's if you're buying the base model, if you're lucky enough to get a 5070 Ti at $1,500, you're considered lucky. If you can get a $1,000 9070 XT, you're considered lucky. But that's another $500 difference, a 500 Sing dollar difference. A $500 can buy you an entire like low-end PC system. So it's a lot of money. So okay, moving on. So Hardware Canucks has a interesting review. So they did a little bit more in depth. They noticed that the 9000 series, right, the 9070 XT and the 9070 consistently loses to the 5000 series, the Nvidia 5000 series in production programs like Blender, Resolve, Premiere, and Handbrake. So if we look at the Hardware Canucks video, let me try and find it. Yep. So let's say creator and STEM application. So in this section, yeah, they noted that it loses out consistently in terms of production. You can see here Blender loses quite a fair bit. So this is the Blender time. So you can see that the 5000 series absolutely wrecked the 9000 series in Blender, and in what else? Handbrake as well. So you can see the 9000 series loses to even their older 7000 series in terms of Handbrake video conversion. In DaVinci Resolve, it is about the same, and so on and so forth. For Adobe Premiere, in Adobe Premiere, I think, yes, it also loses out to the 5000 series, and so on and so forth. For AI workloads, let me see what are my notes. Yeah, AI apps is a bit mixed. So 9000 series loses to the 5000 series in some. It wins against the 5000 series in others. So AI workloads are kind of a mixed bag, and I mean, it's best that you watch a Hardware Canucks video yourself. You can find their video in the video description below. Okay, I'll link it there. So what else? Moving on. Yep. So going for their benchmarks. So this I compared the 9070 against the 5070 in terms of average FPS. So the 9070 actually wins in 1440p. This is in ray tracing. So they do have like a raster testing, traditional rasterization, but they didn't have like an average number. And I didn't bother to go through individual frame by like every single part of their video, every single benchmark, because it takes too much time. So I would have a compilation of it further down in the video. But in terms of ray tracing, it is actually pretty impressive. So in terms of 1440p ray tracing games benchmark, the 5070, if I put it as 100%, the 9070 actually like is 1 to 2% ahead in 1440p in their games tested, and in 4K is actually 7% ahead. But I mean, if you look at the 4K frame rates, it's like 40 versus 43. I would say they're essentially the same. There's just 3 FPS difference. When it's so low like 40 and 43 FPS, you probably cannot see the difference in 4K. So anyway, the 9070 and the 5070 are not GPUs that you want to play in 4K with ray tracing enabled. But if we're talking about the 9070 against the 5070 Ti, it is also impressive. So because the 5070 Ti is already a superior product. So let's say 5070 Ti is 100%. The 9070 in ray tracing games at 1440p only loses to the 5070 Ti for about 7%. So an average of 93.3 for the 5070 Ti in terms of FPS to an 87 FPS for the 9070. So the 9070 is can really compete in terms of playing ray tracing games at 1440p. In terms of 4K though, both of GPUs are also pretty bogged down. 5070 Ti is an average of 55 FPS, where the 9070 XT has an average of 48 FPS. So that means it is it is 80 it's a 13% loss for the 9070 XT. So I would say in 4K, it's also it's not that powerful. 4K ray tracing really is very demanding. So unless you're running like a 5080, 4090, or like a 5090, it doesn't really make sense to play in 4K with ray tracing. Maybe for some games, yes, depending on the games. Then let's move on to, so that's Hardware Canucks testing. Let's move on to Hardware Unboxed. So Hardware Unboxed has 2 videos. Let me take a look. Yeah, so they have a dedicated 9070 XT video and a dedicated 9070 non-XT review video. So I've looked at both of them, and for Hardware Unboxed, they realized that I mean, based on their testing, is that at 1440p, the 4070 Super is about 106 FPS, 9070 109. Anyway, let me just do the percentages. So with 4070 Super as the base, what I compare is the FPS from their charts. The 9070 non-XT is 2% faster, while the 5070 is actually 1% slower than the 4070 Super. So basically about the same. In terms of 4K, right, the 9070 is actually 10% faster than the 4070 Super and 4K. This is a traditional raster, non-ray tracing, while the 5070 is just 1% faster, so about the same. So the 9070 is the superior product based on Hardware Unboxed testing. And when we're talking about the 9070 XT, 9070 XT is 12% faster than the 4070 Super and 25% faster than the 4070 Super in terms of 1440p and 4K respectively. If you want like these numbers, you can freeze frame the video and then you can take a note and write down these numbers yourself. The 5070 Ti has proven to be a superior product again, so it is faster than the 9070 XT in both 1440p and 4K. But kindly note that in 4K, their average FPS is 75 for the 5070 Ti versus 74 for the 9070 XT. So it's only like a 2% difference when compared against the 4070 Super, which 1 FPS difference in 4K is actually pretty low. So in terms of 4K rasterized performance, the 9070 XT is pretty close to the 5070 Ti. That is based on the games that is tested by Hardware Unboxed. Then moving on, we have Linus Tech Tips. So Linus Tech Tips actually did a really good review video this time. I think they have really upped their game in terms of the accuracy of their benchmarking and so on. They did a pretty comprehensive review video for both the 9070 and the 9070 XT, and I have a compilation of their results here. So again, I used the 4070 Super as the benchmark GPU because they did a whole chart whereby you can, so they have their whole like chart of like 1080p raster and see, you can watch their video. So you can go to watch their video for like a detailed list. But anyway, 4070 Super as the baseline in 1440p, this is traditional raster, non-ray tracing, right? 9070 is 12% faster than the 4070 Super, which is way faster than what is tested by Hardware Unboxed. We only got 2% faster, whereby in 4K, their games tested give them an 18% lead over the 1470 Super, which is also pretty inflated, but Hardware Unboxed also noted a 10% lead. So I would say the 9070 is better at 4K compared to the 4070 Super. The 5070, when going against the 4070 Super, is 4% faster, which is still a little bit better than Hardware Unboxed test, and 8% faster at 4K than the 4070 Super. But you will see that based on this test again, right, if you just compare in terms of percentages, the 9070 is again ahead of the 5070 from NVIDIA. So the 9070 is the superior GPU tested by both in terms of rasterization, non-ray tracing games. It is 9070 is superior than the 5070 in as tested by both Hardware Unboxed and Linus Tech Tips. Now we're looking at 9070 XT. It is 26% faster and 34% faster in 1440p and 4K. Then we look at 5070 Ti. So if you look at the numbers from the 5070 Ti, right? If you look at the average FPS, 113 versus 115. So 1970 XT against 5070 Ti, again at 1440p, they are very similar, only 2 FPS apart. And in 4K, they are 4 FPS apart. So it's also pretty similar as well. So I would say the 9070 XT is probably like maybe 5% slower than the 5070 Ti in 1440p and 4K in terms of rasterization. So it is a really good deal, right? Considering that it is probably 5 to maybe maximum 10% slower. But if you are going to buy the 5070 Ti, you have to pay 50% more for the 5070 Ti, just for that 10% increase in performance. So unless you are using the 5070 Ti for like AI workloads, then it doesn't really make sense for a gamer. So from Linus Tech Tips video, they also noted that the 9000 series loses to the 5000 and 4000 series in AI. So if I try and take a look at their AI, their productivity, I think it's It's under productivity section. So they do have some AI tests, but it's very limited. I would say Hardware Canuck has tested more on AI. So you can tune into the Hardware Canuck video if you're interested in the 9000 series performance in terms of AI. Linus Tech Tips also noted that 9000 series loses to both 5000, 4000, and 7000 series in Premiere and Blender, which is a big oof, right? So in terms of production, if you are on the 4000 series, I would say stay on it. If you are buying 5000 series production, that is a good choice. If production series like production, I mean like Premiere, like DaVinci Resolve, Blender, Handbrake, and so on. So Linus Tech Tips also noted that the H.264 video encoding is improved, as noted by Epox Vox as well. But I would say if you are interested in the streaming quality, please tune in to Epox Vox's video. So Epox Vox is a YouTuber. Let me try and find his video. It is a YouTuber who is really focused on he's really focused on streaming in general, streaming performance. So he did a very in-depth study on the performance of the various video encoders for the 9000 series. That means 9070 XT and 9070. And he noted that the H.264, which is the H.264 encoding, is better. But the H.265 encoding, I think it's also better. Like the HEVC encoding, I think it's also... Let me see here. Yeah, it's also better. But what he noted that AV1 encoding was actually worse. So the AV1 encoding actually performed worse than the older 7000 series, which is a big oof from AMD there. So like Epoch Vox just put question marks here because he just noted that the AV1 performance, which is like the highlight of the 7000 series GPUs, yeah, actually when it became worse. So yeah, if you're interested in looking at the encoding performance, so if you are a streamer and you're already on like the 4000, 5000 or the 7000 series from AMD, I would say stay on it. So like if you're a streamer and if you're using AV1 specifically, let's say to stream to YouTube or for recording, right? Like do not upgrade to the 9000 series. But if you're using H.264 for streaming, because I think Twitch is using H.264. If you're a Twitch streamer, then yeah, the 9000 series would be a decent buy because the H.264 encoding is better than the 7000 series. But you might also be an NVIDIA user as well. So the 4000 and 5000 series H.264 encoding is better. So they are better for Twitch streamers. Then from Dear Bauer, actually, he had a pretty brief video. I don't know whether I can find Dear Bauer's video here. Where is Dear Bauer's video? Dear Bauer's. Yeah, Dear Bauer's video. He had a pretty brief video because he mentioned that he actually got his GPUs quite late. So from him, he noted that the 9000 series is actually terrible in CS2 and Valorant. So I think he's only one of the few persons who actually benchmark CS2 and Valorant, and then he noted that like the 9000 series really falls really far from the 5000 and 4000 series in CS2 as well as Valorant as well, which is pretty confusing. Like the 7900 XTX really destroys the 9000 series in both CS2 and Valorant. So if you are a CS2 and Valorant player and you are already on the 7000 series, do not upgrade to the 9000 series or do not switch. If you are a 4000 series user, also do not switch to the 9000 series, right? Then I think I didn't write the notes for Gamers Nexus as well as what are reviews here? J2 Cents as well as Gamers Nexus, because Gamers Nexus actually did two videos. Let me see. Had a 9070 review, and I think they also Gamers Nexus also had a 9070 XT dedicated video and a 9070 review video. So it's a lot. So Gamers Nexus also did a lot of testing, but they didn't do an average. So if you like to see that, just tune in to their video directly. Their videos are linked in my video description below, so you can tune into that. So all in all, if we are looking at the performance, like in general, I would say that the 9070 XT is like it's within a stone's throw distance, stone's throw in terms of gaming performance, restoration performance to the 5070 Ti. In terms of RT, they made significant improvements. Like the ray tracing, if you look at all the individual videos, right, ray tracing in terms of 9000 series versus the older 7000 series. Let's say I'm on a 7900 XTX, the 9070 XT would decimate the 7900 XTX in terms of ray tracing in games. So it's a really compelling buy if you're considering between the 5070 Ti and 9070 XT. That means you can actually play games decently at 1440p and 4K and with ray tracing on as well. For the 9070, it is not such a good buy because even if you're trying to save money, it's not that much of a price saving. So I think best to wait for the 9070 XT. Unless the 9070 drops in price, like it drops to like maybe 750 or like 800 SGD, and then the 9070 XT increases in price due to like demand, right? It goes up to like 1100 or 1200 SGD. Then I mean, in that situation, then you might want to consider the 9070. Or like if the 5070 finally arrives in Singapore and then it's priced ridiculously expensive, like 1003 to 1002, then you can consider like maybe a $800 or like $700 plus 9070 and so on. So there's that. So they are all sold out, not available in Singapore right now, but it would pay, like I mentioned, the best bet you would have to land yourself a 9070 XT would be to go to SimLim and try to look at the physical store, see whether they have 9070 XTs in stock. I doubt the 9070s will be cheaper because the MSRP is really so expensive. So I think the 9070 XT is the value king for in terms of mid-range to, I would still consider a mid-range GPU. It's not really high-end, it's mid to high-end. Okay, so if you have any questions or if you like this content, please I mean, if you have any questions, just post down the comments below. If you like this content, please subscribe and I will continue making more of it. Okay, see you guys next time.